Hi, I'm Paulo, and this is the second episode of Great Pronunciation, a web series showing you how to try to sound like an American, losing some of your accent. The main focus is on Brazilian on their way to leverage their English level, but anyone across the globe can benefit from it. Welcome to the second episode. How to milk a stone. Milking a stone is an expression used in Brazil to indicate that a task is very hard. Let's pay attention at today's episode and check how some foreigners like us Brazilians find a few American English sounds hard to pronounce. I once taught a group of engineers who hired me for conversation lessons. Not all of them were very fluent, but most could participate very effectively in our discussions. A lot of correction needed to be done though, and this included making vocabulary lists for certain topics, as well as stopping the discussions to show some grammar and some pronunciation rules. There was this tall student who had a very strong voice. Let's call him Franklin to protect his identity. Well, Franklin had missed 2 weeks of lessons in this conversation course, and I was really worried because he had been struggling to stay in the class. When he came back, he looked angry, and I asked him the reason for that. He told the class that he had been out on a 10-day business trip in the US, and he concluded the inhabitants of that country were extremely sarcastic toward foreigners. In an attempt to convince us that Americans aren't very helpful when you don't speak English very fluently, he then described the episode that infuriated him. And in his mind, it only happened because he mispronounced the letter L in the word milk. One evening, he really wanted to have some milk, and he went to a cafe and had a seat. When a young waiter approached him, he said, "I want milky." He thought the sentence was so simple that any child would be able to understand it. And by pronouncing it slowly, he also expected the listener to consider it very clear. However, the only thing that he did not expect followed. The waiter asked him for repetition because he hadn't understood Franklin's utterance. In Franklin's mind, I believe, he thought, how come this stupid waiter doesn't get what I'm saying? But as he considered himself a patient man, he repeated the sentence, "I want milky." Do you think the waiter understood it this time? No, he didn't. He then asked for another repetition, and another, and another. "I want milky. I want milky. I want milky." When Franklin thought the waiter's fun was over, in his mind, the young man was just pretending he didn't understand, and he just wanted to make fun of Franklin. So when he thought it was over, the waiter laughed. Okay, Franklin thought, he'll bring my milk finally. But instead, it was the manager of the cafe that headed for my student's table. "I'm sorry, sir," he probably said, "but your waiter couldn't figure out your order. I really apologize for the inconvenience, but he is a young waiter who's just been hired, so could you please repeat your order just one more time?" Very reluctantly did my student speak again. After a very deep breath, "I want milky." To his surprise and relief, there was a smile on the manager's face, instead of the everlasting look of interrogation shown on the waiter's countenance. "I think I know what you would like," slowly said the manager, the same way native speakers talk to foreigners who know nothing about the language. "Is it milk that you want?" "Yes," Franklin replied with a sigh. "I want you milky." The manager scratched his head and confirmed, "Milk," pressing the tip of his tongue toward the edge of the roof of the mouth like this, in order to exaggerate the pronunciation of the letter L. "Milk?" At this point, Franklin burst out, "I thought things were settled by now. Why don't you just bring my milk? You're not my teacher to show me pronunciation like that. Who do you think you are? What makes you better than I am? Just the fact that you're a native speaker?" Of course, he didn't say any of this. He just remained silent, with rage in his eyes. He got his milk, but for obvious reasons, he never went back to that restaurant, and he thought the blame was not on him.
Is it their fault? Brazilians think that when they're misunderstood, it's the Americans who didn't try hard enough to understand them. What really happens is that Americans have such a well-trained ear for natural English that they don't understand things that are not pronounced well. Contrary to what many Brazilians think, they do try to help us when we struggle to pronounce their language.
This is my Chaucerian version of a real story that was lived by a student I had some time ago. It illustrates how important pronunciation is when you try to speak English in a country where it is spoken as the official language. But it also shows that a mistake in the pronunciation of individual phonemes or even whole words is not the only factor that counts for a native speaker to misunderstand you. Problems with intonation, grammatical structure, and cultural awareness may also stop an American from understanding what you say. But don't freak out yet. Not every single little mistake will be misunderstood. In fact, you've got to be quite unlucky to undergo a situation similar to Franklin's. So, what happened to Franklin? Yeah, Franklin was not his name. It's a real story. He had another name. It's funny to call him Franklin. But okay, let me go on. I told you I'd call him Franklin, right? So, okay. What happened to Franklin? As I often like to start things from the end, let's just imagine he pronounced every vowel sound correctly, as well as every consonant sound. That would sound somewhat like, "I want milk." Okay, I guess any waiter in the world would understand that. But there's something missing in the sentence, "I want milk." And there's something that wouldn't be considered very polite. So, do you know what's missing at the end of the sentence? You've already guessed, because you know that Americans are obsessed with the magic words "thank you," "sorry," "excuse me," and "please." If he'd said, "I want milk, please," the waiter would have understood that Franklin had just placed an order, but he didn't understand even that. On the other hand, using the verb "want" when you go to a restaurant or to a store is considered rude. And because the waiter didn't understand Franklin's utterance was an attempt to order something to drink, he may have understood something totally different, considering the mispronunciation of the word milk. A better way to place that order would have been, "I'd like milk," or "Can I have milk?" This would be far better than just "I want milk." "I want milk" is rude. Also, it's a good idea to add a quantifier before uncountable nouns, especially when they refer to food or drink. Therefore, it'd been even better if he'd said, I'd like some milk. I'd like some milk. Or, can I have some milk? Can I have some milk? Another possibility would have been to specify the amount, mentioning the container or the number of something before saying the uncountable noun, such as, I'd like a glass of milk, or can I have 2 cartons of milk? As for the use of the word milk itself, there may be a little problem. The name of the product on the menu. Even when you go to a very small coffee shop that doesn't have a printed menu, it may still have a list of products on the wall. The concern here is, what does that establishment call a glass of milk? It may be called something different than milk, and I imagine that may have been the case with the restaurant my student went to. Anyway, before ordering something, check the menu. At Starbucks, for example, there is no drink called milk or glass of milk or coffee with milk, as we Brazilians like to say. But some examples of drinks that include milk are cafe latte, cafe mocha, and flat white. Wow. But what about the pronunciation of the word milk itself? Do we really have to pronounce the letter L here the same way we pronounce the letter L in lip? Well, according to Thais Cristoforo Silva, a Brazilian linguist, there are 2 kinds of L pronunciation. The clear L is pronounced before a vowel sound, such as in the words late, play, and aloud, whereas the dark L is pronounced after a vowel sound, either before another consonant sound or at the very end of the word, such as in the words feel and belt. In both cases, the L is pronounced with the tip of the tongue touching the point where the roof of the mouth meets the upper teeth, the back of the upper teeth. Pay attention to the pronunciation of these words. Late, play, aloud, feel, belt. In the case of the dark L, there is also a reduction of the vowel before we pronounce the L. That is, we have to make our lips round before it. L. So, we should not pronounce feel, belt, feel, belt, but we should round our lips instead. So, feel, belt, feel, belt, feel, belt, feel, belt. Silva also mentions that in some regions of the US, England, and Australia, the dark L may be vocalized, turning the word feel into feel and belt into belt. In this case, Franklin's pronunciation milky would be nearly acceptable, but that doesn't seem to have been the case, for the manager emphasized the pronunciation of the L in milk. Had he pronounced milk with a vocalized dark L and ending in the consonant sound k, milk, milk, the waiter would have understood him were they in one of those specific regions. Let's suppose he didn't emphasize the sound E at the end of the word and just pronounced milk, milk. When he said, I want milk, I want milk. What could the waiter have understood by the pronunciation, by listening to the pronunciation milk? For one thing, milk sounds a little connected to mucus. Mucus? What is mucus? An excrement from the nose or from the throat. So just imagine someone goes to a restaurant and says, I want mucus. Quero meleca. Quero catarro. Oh. Another possibility I imagine is that the waiter may have understood puke instead of milk. And puke means vomit. In fact, puke is a lot more common than the word vomit. So the sentence, I want puke, would have gotten some equally disgusting responses from the waiter. Do you want to puke? Do you want to vomit? Oh, the men's room is next to the cashier. You may go there to puke, to throw up. Throw up is another verb that means the same thing. Or, I want puke. Oh, do you want a glass of puke, sir? I'm sorry, we've run out of puke. People have been drinking too much vomit lately. Yuck. Well, anyway, what we can learn from this is that we can avoid misunderstandings if we pronounce the consonant L as in laboratory, lullaby, let's go, well, pencil, child, folks, milk, always touching the alveolar ridge. This part of the roof of the mouth where it touches the back of the teeth. I hope you've learned something about the pronunciation of clear and dark L with this video. It was a great pleasure for me to make it. And since you've watched so far, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends via YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever. Just help others have this experience too. I really appreciate your attention. Thank you. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment. What did you like about this video? What didn't you like? And suggestions for the next ones. I count on you for the next videos of great pronunciation. Bye.